one of the most difficult interviews I've ever had to conduct in my entire career was conducting the interview with Sean Payton after he just won the Super Bowl live on NFL Network, where he was so amped up with that win. He slapped my hand. I extended it to shake his hand. He slapped it so hard, I did not have feeling in the right arm for the first half of that interview. I mean, it just, you know how you,
oh, yeah.
I think he gave me a stinger. And I thought to myself, literally 4 or 5 minutes in, I'm like, will I get the feeling back in my arm before the end of this show? So I guess I'm glad this will be a phone interview and socially distant anyway. But 844-204-RICH is the number to dial here on the show. Again, Justin Herbert of the Los Angeles Chargers will be joining us in hour number 2. So we've got some great guests the first half of our show, followed up by Kyle Brandt and Josh Duhamel, great guests in the second half of our show. Back here on the Rich Eisen Show, one big happy simulcast family. And joining me here on the show is the head coach of the current 1 seed in the NFC, entering Thanksgiving weekend. He is Sean Payton. How are you, sir?
Rich, I'm doing well. I can think of that moment, and
yes.
My first thought is if you guys had a blue tent on set, they would have taken you back in the tent to evaluate yourself.
That's amazing.
This did predate the blue tent era when you came on after winning the Super Bowl and slapped my hand so hard I did not have feeling in it for the first half of that interview. That is true.
Rich is being evaluated.
I have to take it one question at a time. You know, it's question to question. I was literally question to question in that interview. I really was. But thankfully, Marshall was there.
Good to talk to you. Yeah, absolutely. It's good to be on.
It's good to have you here. Anything going on in your world these days, huh? Nothing going on these days, your neck of the woods.
Well, look, Thanksgiving week, one of the challenges I think in our league, and it's for every team, is it's tough on the holidays, particularly either Thanksgiving and Christmas. And what I mean by that scheduling-wise is there's a handful of teams that play tomorrow. That's been us really the last few years.
Right.
But when you're not playing, you're wanting to get your players and staff home after the practice tomorrow, and so you double up on your preparation nights. So instead of each night doing one segment of your install as a staff, you're having to because they're going to be home on Thursday night. You're having to knock out your third down, your red zone, your goal line, kind of all of it tonight. And it's just part of the deal, though. And we played on Thanksgiving this year. We happen to play on Christmas. But we're looking forward. This next game is in Denver, and they're coming off a big win. And it's the next team up. It's the next challenge in front of us.
Yeah, and then obviously you saw what Denver was able to do to a quarterback in his 4th career start in Tua, and now you've got Taysom Hill in his 2nd career start. Do you view Taysom as a rookie quarterback technically, just because again he had only 19 throws in his career going into the win this past weekend? How do you approach Taysom here?
Yeah,
Coach?
I think that's fair relative to his reps. And then the only other thing that maybe is a little bit more calming is that he's played a lot of football. Now, it hasn't been at the quarterback position. At times He's been more of a wildcat quarterback. But, the first quarter of last week's game, there's certainly a lot of pressure on anybody who's starting their first game, and I thought he handled it well, settled in, and really functioned well as the game wore on. We played outstanding defense. We have seen, the Denver tape versus Miami. I think Vic Fangio's done a fantastic job always defensively. They're starting and playing a young quarterback, not a rookie, but they played very well last weekend.
So when was the first time you laid eyes on Taysom Hill, Sean? When was the first time?
The first time is really how we ended up finding him. The final cut down every year comes right before the first weekend of the regular season. So the weekend prior, every team cuts down to their final 53 at that time. And so there's a lot of tape everyone's watching for roster cuts. And they had asked me to look at a practice squad candidate at receiver, and it was Max McCaffrey, who coincidentally we had seen a little bit of when he was with us briefly. And so I was watching Green Bay film of the preseason, and it was a cut-up made of Max McCaffrey. And it just so happened the plays that he's getting in are the second half of preseason games, and they all happen to be with this quarterback, number 7, Taysom Hill. And so as I'm watching the cut-up, I couldn't help but notice the quarterback as well. He made a few big plays. He scrambled, gained 8-9 yards. There's a play where he steps up in the pocket, and he ran for 33 yards and a touchdown. And the other thing that was noticeable was when he scored on that play, all 10 other players were in the end zone, celebrating with him. And so you could tell on film this was a young player in his rookie year out of BYU that his teammates certainly were playing for. And I called Ireland in, and I said, hey, I'm comfortable. We were looking at the decision if we could get Max McCaffrey on the practice squad here. Let's go ahead and do that. But I want to look at all of this Hill that I'm looking at. And I said, this isn't Sean Hill from Maryland still in the league, is it? And then, no, he said, this is Taysom Hill. And so we put a cut up together. We watched all of his stuff. And when it ended, I turned and said to him, what don't we like about this guy? In other words, and we decided to put a claim in for him. And so basically for the audience, when the cuts are made at training camp, there's a claiming order, and it's the draft order that year. And so the team that picked first in the draft would have first claim. And so when all these cuts are made, you'll see claims put in. And if 3 or 4 teams claim an individual player, it's awarded to the highest seeded claim, the first, the second, all the way back to the Super Bowl winner. I think we were claiming 11 that year, and I was just worried that maybe someone ahead of us claimed the player. But fortunately, with that claim, we were awarded the player, so we really got him at the week before the start of the regular season. We were fortunate, and I'm sure glad we did.
So, Sean Payton here on the Rich Eisen Show. So many questions about Taysom Hill now moving forward, and why he's in there at all. I just want to go down what I've heard and the narratives that we've been told, and let's go one by one here. That he's gotten the start here because this was your plan all along. That if Brees was going to be out for any significant amount of time, this was your plan all along. And you told Taysom that this would be his opportunity if it came about, and you wanted to be a man of your word. Are all those factual right there?
Yeah, they are. In the offseason, we were signing him, and, a couple questions came up. We wanted to back off the kickoff and kick return phase of special teams. Those were some snaps we felt we could hold on. He was still going to work as our personal protector on punt. He was still going to be on our punt rush, punt block. He's an outstanding special teams player. And I think the feeling going in, and Jameis, Drew, all of these guys knew that if something happened in game, it would be too difficult to try to replace all the reps he's had in these other spots, also playing kind of a receiver tight end for us. And so Jameis had an outstanding camp, and we feel great about the progress he's made, and really that's been a good addition. So it sure enough happened that way, where Drew couldn't finish the second half of a game here a week ago, and Jameis went in right away and did a great job. But I told Taysom, in the event that there's an injury like last year where the following week we started Teddy, that I would give you that opportunity. And I think the challenge for so many people that cover us, or for anybody that's watched us, is you kind of only see him in one role, because that's all the exposure you have. And so you see him running the ball, you see him throwing it some, you see him in a lot of different – but we're able to see him as a quarterback, all throughout the offseason, throughout the training camp, and he meets with the quarterbacks. So our exposure would be a little bit more extensive, if you will, to him playing quarterback than anyone else who was just watching us. And I totally understood last week that, there's a lot of pressure going into a starter, and I think there was an assumption that, hey, it was going to be Jameis, and I think when everyone finds out it's not, there's that immediate, well, why are they doing this? And a lot of it had to do with just our exposure to him playing quarterback that you might not have seen on TV.
And then, of course, you signed him to a contract that, I guess, to use the phrase that it's been associated with Taysom so much, he's the most expensive Swiss Army knife maybe in NFL history. But the idea is that maybe he is the guy after Drew decides to go to NBC, which almost happened this year, and we know did not. Are you using these games without Drew to kick the tires on whether Taysom Hill is your next quarterback? Are you technically, as a 1 seed, using this time as a little bit of a laboratory to see if this works, Coach?
Yeah, I would say this, though. Our job to this team right now is to win. And certainly when any player's playing, you're evaluating the player. But I think that, first and foremost, we're looking at trying to win each week and put ourselves in the best position at the end of the season. So, Drew went to IR. Hopefully he's back sooner than later and healthy. In the meantime, both Taysom and Jameis are getting snaps, preparing to help us do that, to help us win the next game. And, there's so many things he can do that are unique. Obviously, it's a different type of player. He's close to 238, 240 pounds. He's strong. He's got a good arm. I thought he did a good job last week in his start. Like I said, he made some. Then there's some off-schedule plays where he scrambles and scores his first touchdown, and so we've just got to keep looking at ways to put him in a position to be successful. But by no means do we have that luxury to just get a free evaluation. What's most important is finding a way to win this game.
Sean Payton here on the Rich Eisen Show. And I guess all that said, I think I did see you say after the game that there was, some pressure involved with this decision that you made and pressure for Hill to make it cash. And then that happened. And it seems that the lid off the boiling pot was placed right in the Twitter hands of Roddy White, Coach. We noticed you retweeted the famed Atlanta Falcon.
We have some fun with this rivalry. We every year. I mean, it's always a tough battle. Last year we split. They beat us at home, and we were able to get a win on the road. And then this year, we play this weekend, and we turn around and go to Atlanta. So I can remember a lot of games. Roddy competing on the field. He was a tremendous player, and that was just one of those moments I couldn't help myself.
Now, was there someone, because again, I know you're not spending a lot of your time, scrolling on Twitter looking for trolls, but did someone on your staff say, hey, Roddy did this, and you're like, I got it?
Actually, like 4 or 5 years ago, I don't know, whenever I got Twitter, I followed him just because he was a good player in our division, so I've always followed him. I don't think I ever got a follow back, but that doesn't matter. And so
Not now.
I had just come across a couple of the tweets, and I thought, man, I hadn't heard from him in a while, and it was just, look, he's fired up, I'm sure, pulling for his team, and it's all good.
It is all good. Sean Payton here on the Rich Eisen Show. How is Drew feeling? We heard the reports out there, the number of ribs that were broken made me actually look up how many ribs a human being has, Coach.
Well, listen, I feel like Ed Waters kept us up to date with weekly rib fractures, and it's just continued to climb. So, but he's doing well, certainly in pain and progressing with his rehab. It'll take a minute, and when you're throwing the football, just the torque on your torso when you throw each time.
Right.
Forget about just being hit. There's pain involved, and man, he's as tough as they come. That game a week ago when we played San Francisco, in the second half, I mean, literally just as we're getting ready to go on the field, he said, hey, I don't know. And he's kind of like mumbling a little bit, and I'm leaning on his words because I didn't know if he had a play or something. And he said, I don't think I can go in. And it was the first time in 15 years where right away I knew how serious it was and how, the condition he was in. And so Jameis began to warm up and get ready. But it takes a lot for someone like Drew to not be able to finish a game, and it was a lot. And, man, the toughness he showed in finishing that first half is pretty amazing.
In the few minutes I have left with you here, Sean, how does this team compare to your previous Super Bowl winning one? I mean, how is this lining up in a manner in which or you feel in your gut, you feel just with your own football sense that this has the makings? Where does that stand?
Yeah, look, it's a good question. Going back, the 9 team, much like Pittsburgh right now, got off to that, 9, 10, I don't know how many in a row at the beginning of the year. And,
right.
That type of start. And so pretty soon you find yourself, when that happens, winning some games maybe close at the end and then winning some games just like you see with what they're doing. And they're doing a great job. Our 11 team was extremely talented, and we ended up in the second round of the playoffs. Man, we had a tough one in Minnesota, obviously, in 17. 18, we had a good team, and we're in the championship game. I think I'm encouraged with how we're playing on defense the last 3 weeks. We went on the road a few weeks back in Chicago with a bunch of injuries on offense, and we did a good job of winning a tough game with a lot of guys out. And then that following week in Tampa Bay was a big game. Obviously, they're a good football team. We played extremely well defensively, and I think this word confidence generally is manifested through demonstrated ability on the field. Like, you can wish for it or hope for it or want to have confidence, but it has to happen, and you have to have positive results. And I feel like we've begun to see that defensively. And I think we played a real good complementary game. Our kicking game has been on point. I think the field position battle, a lot of those things that it takes to win in our league. So, look, it gives you a chance, and then all you're hoping for when the season ends is an opportunity to get in the postseason, and then kind of go from there.
So before I let you go, I mean, your voice kind of trailed off there when you mentioned the championship game in 2018. We know what happened in that game. I got to be honest with you. I do not miss pass interference being reviewable. I don't miss it one split second. I think.
Yeah, I don't think anyone else does. Right. I think that, look, there were a number of things. I don't think people like to see the game stopped a lot.
Right.
And so everyone wants a flow to the game, and look, inside 2 minutes, the challenge for everyone is really back in New York with reviewing plays in a 2-minute drill. I think we've done a good job by and large with that. And so it was just one of those plays, and you hope that when your career's over, you're on the better end than the other end.
Right, I know. So I guess in your capacity with the competition committee, what so far do you think will be on the radar screen? Is it possible there's a rule change that you're thinking of right now? If so, what would that be, Coach?
Well, you always start with player health and safety, I think, and one of the challenges that the officials have, or the helmet to helmet,
yep.
the lowering the head. So I know continue to work on clearing that or cleaning that up and trying to educate our players. And then outside of that, generally speaking, I think, look, we just finished a unique training camp. So as we look forward, I'm going all the way to next training camp. How many preseason games? It looks like 17 regular season games. What's one of the things that takes place when you have something like this unique season with COVID is there are a few things when we sooner than later hopefully get back to normal. There are a few things you've learned, and whether that's just in the Zoom meetings, our company's going to travel a little less because they found out that they can conduct business in a reasonable fashion. There'll be a few things that we've learned as a league, I'm sure, when we look back.
And then I guess last one for you on that front is, what about the other side of things? You said in terms of helmet to helmet to get that more buttoned up so players understand where the strike zone is a little bit better or not dipping their heads. What about making that reviewable? Because so many times you see a hit that is called out of just an abundance of caution by the officials who do know that they are the first line of defense here. And it costs you 15 yards that you shouldn't have cost. And I know that the unintended consequence would be to stop the game and say it wasn't called, it should be called, and people go crazy over that. But what about just cleaning that up, letting the eye in the sky kind of help get right what was wrong? Yeah,
it's a great point. I think the one thing, and we've talked about this, it's harder and harder to officiate our game, not only just the speed of the game, but with some of the things we're asking the officials to do. And I personally think as we look at reducing the variables for the officials, I think you get a better performance. And so how do we do that? How do we do that for them? We're seeing an influx of new officials coming into our league. They're doing a great job. But how do we reduce the variables and maybe take some stuff off of their plate so they can continue to operate at a high level?
Sean, appreciate the time, man. Really, I'm thankful for our friendship, thankful for you calling in the show, and thankful for your Twitter thumb when you see a Roddy White tweet. I'm thankful for that.
Listen, I'm thankful that your hands got feeling back in it.
It only took 11 years. It only took that long.
Happy Thanksgiving to you guys, and
Thanks.
Always, Rich, thanks for having me on.
Right, brother. Thank you. That's Sean Payton, Saints head coach, right here in the Rich Eisen Show. Great chat right there. Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.